You walk down an eerie school hallway and catch a glimpse of a girl. Whispers of death linger in the air. You reach out to say hi, and she ignores you. Befuddled, you ask your new classmates, and they tell you that you're seeing things. There's no one there, but there is. There's this girl, and eventually she speaks to you, and thus begins a dark rabbit hole you can't get out of. Family members and classmates alike fall like dominoes, and there's no stopping this death march, as another one passes. Another is a horror/mystery manga about Koichi Sakakibara, a transfer student in Yomiyama North Middle School, and his experience with an odd and gruesome school year, filled with rumors, superstitions, and strange phenomenons. The story is written Yukito Ayatsuji, published in October 29, 2009, and not too long adapted into a manga and an anime. Heck, even a live adaptation. Another is a great horror series for those wanting to get into the spooky mood, so today I wanted to revisit this horror anime from my childhood. It was a fun trip down memory lane and a reminder of how great of a story author Yukito Ayatsuji is, and also discovering their sequels and prequels. Maybe one day we'll visit another universe in full, but I also discovered Yukito's other novels, so that'll be fun for me to dabble in. But in the meantime, let's discuss this horror masterpiece. Masterpiece might be stretching it, but it's one of the few horror animes that has kept my attention, so to me personally, it does feel like a masterpiece in that sense. As always, spoilers will be discussed, but only for the original Another Anime and manga, not the other sequels or prequels. So Another 2000 won't be really part of this, we may mention it, but we haven't dove into it. So, with that being said, thank you so much for joining us in investigating the supernatural. Grab a cup of coffee or tea and let's join Class 3-3. Pause. By the way, yes, I'm a clown. So I had two personas, a detective and a clown sona. I was originally mostly a clown sona, and then I switched to the detective sona, but now I'm officially just going to stick with the clown sona. One, I have a lot of art of her. Two, I find her really cute and I like being quirky and silly and blah blah blah. So the clown is here to stay, so welcome to the circus. And yes, I did record this during the spooky season before Halloween, so this was intended to come out before Halloween, so I apologize if there's a lot of references for Halloween, spooky season, so that's the reason. Anyway, we're gonna get back to it. Spring 1998. Koichi Sakakibara, a student transferring into Yomiyama North Middle School's Class 3-3, comes in from Tokyo and has a weak respiratory system. This causes his lungs to lapse, and on his first week in Yomiyama, he spends it recovering in a hospital room. The class president and representatives greet Koichi in the hospital. In the anime, there are 3 of them greeting him, but in this case there are only 2 in the manga. They welcome him with open arms and attempt to tell him something that seems important, but for some reason decide not to. As Koichi recovers, he runs into an odd girl with an eye patch. She's holding a doll and goes down to the hospital's basement. In the basement, it turns out, there's an area to pay respects to those who have passed away. This girl was going down to the memorial to pay respects. Once Koichi is free from the hospital, he keeps in contact with a nurse he becomes close with, Sanae Mizuno. Sanae Mizuno turns out to be a sister of a classmate of his in Class 3-3. This is important for later on. Here, he notices something peculiar once he joins the class. The eye patch girl is in his class, and his classmates seemingly don't respond to whenever he brings up that she's around. He always pokes and prods and inquires that there's a girl right there, but all of them act like she's not there. This eye patch girl has been ignoring him the entire time. I didn't mention it, but she introduced herself over at the hospital when we first ran into her. She is Mei Misaki, and she is our other protagonist, and starts informing him about what's going on since no one's truly answering his questions, asking why don't you guys acknowledge she's there, or what is going on. Eventually, Mei and Koichi are speaking pretty regularly to the ire of their classmates, and one day, the school representative, the female one, Yukari, is rushing out upon the news of her mother passing. She runs into the hallway and ends up falling down an opposite staircase that's across from Mei and Koichi. The sight of Koichi and Mei sends Yukari spiraling and she goes out of, like, not really out of control, but she loses her balance when she rushes down the staircase and ends up impaling herself with an umbrella. It's a pretty gruesome sight. Not too long after, Yukari's friend Izumi Akazawa, who is actually the third person that you see in the anime that greets Koichi in the hospital. Izumi Akazawa, not too long after, becomes the female class rep, like I said, and blames Mei and Koichi for breaking the rules and talking. So he learns that every year that there's someone who is quote-unquote sacrificed, because that is the rule of the class. Hey, Future Jelly here. So by sacrificed, I meant the people who were chosen to be someone who is no longer there. I thought to myself, that's very similar to a sacrifice. You're basically sacrificing someone's well-being or existence for a few hours a school day because of this curse. Also, I incorrectly said that this happens every year. This does not happen every year. This happens on an off year. So whenever it is determined there may be an off year or there may be an additional person in the class, that's when they decide to sacrifice or choose someone who is no longer there in order to have an equal amount of people in the class or the amount of people in the class that they should have. But at the same time, not too long after, Sanae Mizuno, who is Koichi's confidant, and, like I said, a sister to a member of Class 3-3, passes away while on the phone with Koichi due to a sudden freak accident in the elevator. After that, Izumi holds a class meeting and everyone is in agreement. Koichi also becomes a person who is no longer there. During this troubling time, and since Koichi's arrival, his aunt, Raiko Mikami, has supported Koichi and established the rules that go on at school. 2 about superstitions, and the 3rd about following what the class does regardless of how you feel. Always follow the class, or honor it, whichever. And while Koichi is feeling conflicted, he asks Raiko questions about what happened to Class 3-3, why do people act a certain way, but before he gets any answers, they cannot say or hear certain words. Even when talking to his dad, he can't get the answers he wants. The dad is a pretty unreliable narrator, we find out, and not really trustworthy, so it's not like we would really get many answers from them. But it is very peculiar because at this point, when Izumi decides that Koichi becomes a person who's not there, the night before, his aunt, Raiko, decides to say, Koichi, if anything happens, just follow whatever the class says, please. And we find out it's because they have decided that he's a person who's no longer there. But we do find out the entire truth, or at least a majority of the truth, thanks to Mei and the librarian. Turns out, every year there is an extra person in their class, and to avoid a calamity or these superstitious or these freak accidents, which always lead to death, turns out that every year there is an extra person in their class, and to avoid freak accidents that lead to death due to the anomaly, they designate one person in the class to be quote-unquote not there. This year, Mei was designated as a not there, but that rule was broken since Koichi kept speaking to Mei, and since people kept dying around them, Koichi was decided to be a second not there person, hopefully preventing more deaths from happening. This reason was revealed by the librarian, and the reasoning was in 1972, Misaki, a student in class 3-3, died in the middle of the school year. Despite his death, the whole class pretended he was there, which led to a weird graduation photo that shows him there, like it's like a ghost in a photo. If any additional person was acknowledged, they are known as the casualty. The casualty is always the anomaly. Over time, both Koichi and Mei become used to only being the excluded members of the class, eventually ditching classes that are mixed with others and escape to the library, where the librarian treats them as normal students unlike everyone else in the school. Eventually, they discover that one year the killings just stopped midway. Curious as to why, the pair investigates. During this time, Koichi learns that Mei has a doll eye. This doll eye allows her to see the dead. One day, though, as class goes as usual, their homeroom teacher took their own life in front of them. And before doing that, takes the life of his mother. It is assumed it was out of the stress of caretaking a disabled parent and also the pressures of the curse, the deaths happening during his year. So it looks like sacrificing 2 classmates didn't really do anything. After this, the whole class decides to acknowledge Mei and Koichi's existence. They half-heartedly apologize, but Izumi is still angry with them and blames them for every death that has occurred and thinks that everything they have been doing is wrong. One day, Yuya, a classmate of theirs, invites Koichi along with Naoya to Inoya Cafe. Naoya and Yuya, I'm so sorry if I'm butchering these names, both apologize for treating them like they weren't there and confess they told Yuya's sister Tomoka what was going on. Tomoka is an old student from Yomiyama High, but she was not part of class 3-3, so she never knew about this tradition. Turns out a classmate from her year that was in class 3-3 made a confession in the cafe not too long ago. They were super drunk, and Tomoka overheard it. The student from Raiko's year, which is also the year that this student that made a confession in the cafe, 1983, Katsumi Matsunaga had left behind an audio cassette for students to find in the future. These cassettes hold his confessions and theory as to how to stop the future killings. Turns out, once you discover the anomaly/casualty, you just them, and that ends the unfortunate deaths. But you have to be sure that it's the casualty. This all occurred during a camping trip during Raiko's year. Yes, you've heard that right. I've been saying Raiko because the aunt was actually in class 3-3 back when Koichi's mom was alive. And because of that camping trip, and also Raiko discovering that the anomalies were stopped during this camping trip, Raiko used to be the teacher's assistant, we find out later on, and becomes the homeroom teacher after the passing of the original teacher. And because of that, she decides to take the class to the same camping trip that stopped the anomalies, that stopped the killing. But this is voluntary. People are not forced to go. Thanks to retrieving the information of how the killing stopped midway, she learned this from the librarian, obviously. So, class 3-3 decides to participate in the mountain trip. Koichi and his friends discuss in their room how they'll proceed with the information that they learned from the cassette. Unsure, and one of them feeling like they need to seek that anomaly out and kill them, they break away, uncertain what to do next. But Koichi decides to step aside and grab Mei and share this cassette with her. Unknowingly, Izumi is eavesdropping and learns of the theory from the cassette tape too. Mei reveals that her doll eye, the fake eye that she has the ability to see the dead, so she could actually see who the anomaly and casualty is, revealing that she's not the anomaly/casualty, and Koichi isn't, despite the kind of narrative we've been thrown into. We kind of feel like Koichi is the anomaly, but it's not. To be quite honest, the story behind her doll eye is really, really sad. But we also find out that she is not the anomaly because she actually was the one with the first casualty. So do you remember when we talked about how she went to a memorial because someone died? It turns out it was her biological sister / so-called cousin who died first, but because she was the person who was decided to be not there, she could not tell anyone. She couldn't tell the teachers. She couldn't tell I'm sure the librarian knew, but I mean, she probably felt like there was no reason to tell the class because they designated her as the person who is not there. We go into that a little bit deeper in the manga, but for the basic premise, it doesn't really do much, and we can talk more about that during the themes and discussion. Anyway, as Koichi gets pulled away from Mei with Naoya having a dilemma, Mei gets cornered by Izumi down the hallway. Izumi assumes that Mei is the casualty/anomaly. This is due to her biases of never liking Mei, thinking Mei was never acting like the perfect anomaly or like person who's not there, not honoring the school rules, blah 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 blah. But Mei says it isn't her. Izumi stabs her doll eye, the fake eye, and thankfully Mei survives. Izumi becomes inconsolable and realizes that Mei is not the bad guy all along, and that she had a simple grudge against her. She apologizes. She tried to, crazy girl. Mei is understanding, surprisingly, and tells her to escape while she goes searching for the casualty because she knows who it is. During this confrontation, we find out that Naoya reveals that he pushed Tomohiko, another classmate who is actually the president of the class, because he's suspicious that he's the casualty. Koichi convinces him to help bring Tomohiko to safety because he believes he's still alive, and Naoya realizes that he's not the casualty. Because his body's literally still there, breathing, fine. Thankfully, they saved Tomohiko's life. Meanwhile, the cabin the class is staying in is catching fire out of nowhere. Koichi runs in to see who he can save and runs into Mei. Mei reveals who the casualty is. It's Raiko, his aunt. His aunt was revealed to have died a year and a half ago. They strike Raiko and thus end the horrible curse for the rest of that year. We find out that also during Raiko's year, that's the year that Koichi's mom died. So Koichi's mom died presumably due to the curse during the childbirth. Koichi and Mei meet over Raiko's grave, give their respects, and promise to hang out again in Tokyo once Koichi returns to Tokyo. And Mei wishes to pursue art college in Tokyo, so we have some foreshadowing that they will meet again, and it seems that something has blossomed between them. These two realize they're the only ones who will remember her time as an anomaly, and with that, in time, they too will forget. Koichi heartbreakingly says goodbye to the last mother figure he had, the last connection to the mother he couldn't ever grow up with. What a doozy of a manga, wasn't it? Another is a weird piece of literature since the source material, the novel, the manga, and the anime are all vastly different in the way that they show the story. But they do all end the same way. It's always the same ending, it's always the same people. For example, Izumi isn't really important in the novel, but she's a pretty prominent figure in the manga and anime. Then there's Yumi Ogura. I don't mention her since I recapped via the manga, but she had a stronger presence and death in the anime, whereas in the manga she has a brief appearance, and in the novel she's just in the background, as one of Izumi's lackeys. I find it interesting when you come across a series with various iterations as opposed to the source material. While it didn't change the entire premise of the story, it is a great way to relive a story in a various different ways. Anyway, it's spooky season, isn't it? As one of my topics, it was originally going to be spooky novels, but I really wanted to dive back into some scary or spooky mangas and animes. I decided to give another a revisit. This actually came to me one day when hubby and I were walking around Barnes & Noble. I often stop by there when I want to have some fresh air and see what new books or mangas are in stock. We came across another and discovered there was a whole entire universe. I definitely plan to visit another Zero, the other, Karma, Episode S, and another 2001 in the future since it had caught my attention. But we're focusing on the original story at the moment, and the original is still pretty fun. The beauty of another is the uncertain eeriness it carries. The story of curses can always be so cliche or campy, and that isn't to say that there aren't portions of the story that can fall flat that way, but what can I say? It was enjoyable. We can even take it apart and go as far as to call it a coming-of-age story. Koichi seems to have reoccurring thoughts about his mother and his mother's death 15 years ago, how it ties to Raiko. Constantly, he's asking questions to Raiko about not only his class, but also his mother. He asks questions to his dad about his mother. He spends time during the investigation with Mei in the library to look up how his mother looked in class 3-3. Whenever they meet up in her dollhouse, or doll shop, sorry, I like to call it a dollhouse. At our place, they bring up the topic of his mom pretty often in comparison to her own mom and her own family. Turns out that Koichi's mother, Ritsuko, was in the same class as Misaki Yomiyama. Misaki Yomiyama, the deceased and cursed classmate from 1972. So, turns out that Koichi's mom was part of the class that started the curse. At the end of the manga, Koichi says a tearful goodbye to his aunt, Raiko, a tearful goodbye to his mother. He thinks of Raiko as his mom in a sense, or at least a way that was tied to his mom. He lets go of the last tie he had to his mother, showing a possibility of him coming to terms of letting go what could have been. A discussion between Koichi and his grandma shows this too. They discuss how Raiko always vowed to take Koichi away from his father if he ever wished it. Never got the chance to since she drowned 2 years prior, while serving as Class 3-3's homeroom teacher. The curse had swallowed her too. As a horror story, this hits all the right notes and vibes. I will say as a manga or anime, its pacing is a little fast. I hadn't visited the novel version, so it might be slower, but as an anime/manga, the pacing is a little quick with you jumping through the months quickly. But it's also surprising with so much happening between 4 to 5 months. The conclusion happening in June, I wouldn't say the pacing is completely terrible, but it's quick enough where I have to reread to understand what exactly happened. Plus, in the anime differing, you'd have slightly different understandings and experiences with different characters. You won't really get a traditional Stephen King horror story, not a Junji Ito experience with another either, but you will get an eerie supernatural story with a slight coming-of-age air with it. I think it's entertaining in its own right. I do think Koichi having health issues would have been a more interesting point to hammer on if it was connected to the drowning case with his aunt, how he could lose his breath easily as if he felt he was drowning since his aunt passed by drowning. But it feels like it was just an interesting tidbit that he was always short of breath, that he had some health complications. We also have a weird side tangent about May's cousin being the first victim, about how she was sold off and that her eye is a doll because her mother is a doll maker and is obsessed with her miscarried daughter. Yes, so the mom is trying to use May as a replacement for the daughter that she could have almost had, and May's original family sells her off to her current mom. It's such a weird storyline. It really is like different. It just came out of nowhere and it was so quick that I couldn't completely wrap my head around it. It was, I feel like, introduced very, very poorly. All we learned was that she created a doll in likeness to May, what she envisioned to be her almost born daughter. And that was it. It felt odd. Especially because we run into the mom in the middle of the manga and she seemed pretty normal and nice, but we really didn't go anywhere with it. I suppose we could have tied the doll eye that May received from her mother to be blessed or cursed with the power to see the dead thanks to her dead sibling, the dead sibling being the adopted mother's dead daughter or her real sibling who passed, the cousin who is revealed to be her sister. Honestly, Koichi was wrapped up so nicely with a bow, it's a shame what happened with May's story. It felt like it could have went somewhere. There's a chance it did in the other stories and iterations like Another 2001, Episode S, etc. We can revisit this and see if these questions are put to bed. A huge difference as well between the anime and manga is the treatment of the character Izumi Akazawa. The Akazawa I've discussed for the most part is the manga version, hostile, angry, bitter. It's only fair, she's lost her best friend and her older brother through this curse. In truth, May should have never been spoken to and the curse would have never acted, in her belief. But May never mentioned that her sister died before Koichi had arrived. So regardless of who the anomaly was or the rules set in place, people were going to die anyway, since Raiko, Koichi's aunt, is already in class 3-3 as one of the teachers, since she ended up being the anomaly. It's distressing enough that May never disclosed, nor was she ever given the chance to disclose that she had a family member that passed away. Another thing that bothered me. Yeah, I know. Anyway, but that's a whole rant that we don't need to get into because, whatever. But we are talking about the personality shifts of Izumi Akazawa. I discovered that Izumi in the novel and manga are pretty similar. In the manga, she's more vengeful and is pissed off at Koichi and May, showing the reasonings due to jealousy of May, handling the circumstances of her situation, and taking out her anger/frustration with the situation on May since she was the quote-unquote chosen one to be not there, right? But in the anime, they have a little more friendlier relationship and Izumi has feelings for Koichi. So much so, she protects him by killing someone. She kills about 2 people in the anime and she actually dies. In the manga, she survives. In the novel, it's said that in passing, their childhood relationship is brought up, but not a focal point, unlike the anime. And in the manga, she doesn't kill anyone. She really doesn't. And in the anime, she's given a countermeasures job. She's set as the person behind countermeasures to prevent people from dying, which is something that doesn't ever come up in the manga. She's just appointed as the female representative. That's something that both the anime and the manga both have, but the countermeasures part is not. I have never heard of such a whiplash of a character. I literally finished the script, recorded everything, and I'm amending things, and didn't remember Izumi being that different until I started grabbing source materials and more. I don't know if you can even call it character assassination, since these 2 Izumis are so vastly different, they could each be their own characters. The changes in the anime vision are broad and wide, but since I didn't take the time to rewatch the anime, I can't go over too many of them, but this was one of the biggest ones. I personally prefer the manga version. She feels a lot more understandable and calculating. The anime one was a wild time. And like I said, I think the anime definitely took a lot of liberties by adding more characters, different characters, and had a different kind of development for each character, which is really interesting. All in all, did I enjoy another? I did. This one especially put me in the spooky mood. The atmosphere is done extremely well. It feels like you're walking around the dead of night. It's pitch black. You feel your way, you hold onto the walls, and you hear the creaks of the floorboards. The chill of a breeze from the open window, small bits of light thanks to the moon, and a loud sound out of nowhere, only to find out it's a cat or dog, and that the light switch was actually next to you the whole time. But the journey was well worth the fright. Halloween is always a great time to get into horror-themed things, even witchy things. I usually get into horror books, manga, and anime at this time. Weird how I can't handle horror movies though, but I digress. I enjoy diving into all these horror themes in the literary and 2D world, and I hope you enjoyed exploring with me too. What did you think? Do you think you'll give another a try? Or did you watch it already? I don't think I went too in-depth with my summary, but I did talk about the key points pretty strongly, but I don't think it excuses you not to check out the anime or source materials. It's a great experience, but don't forget to turn off the lights when you do. And that was that. Thank you so much for joining me in this supernatural journey. Who knows what we'll check out next? The next one I'm planning to do is probably my escapism piece that I spoke about a bit ago that I really was excited to finish up. And since the spooky season was coming up, I kind of diverted my attention to Witch Hat Atelier and another because I wanted to talk about something spookier, magical, whimsical, witchy that fit the October theme, you know? I thought it was a pretty great opportunity for me to visit these topics and revisit an old favorite from the horror genre. I was originally going to do a Junji Ito deep dive, but we could save that for next year or another time as well. I'm not going to cancel that out. I would love to talk about Junji Ito. He's my favorite horror mangaka, and then it would be also great to talk about Monster. I'm sure everybody has something to say about Monster and already has, but I still really, really enjoyed it and would love to share that with you guys. But yeah, that was my thoughts and feelings on another. I hope I explained it pretty well. I know that my summary was basically the whole plot line, but there are a lot of tidbits and little things that probably don't make sense unless you go grab the book or the manga or watch the anime. And I really recommend it because I feel I didn't do enough justice in summarizing this great story. I feel like there's just so many intricate details that you need to see or read for you to understand the whole thing, especially when it comes to how this could affect Koichi so seriously, and also understand Mei's story too, Misaki's story. It's so confusing how they brushed over it very quickly. I believe it was only a chapter where we learned about her backstory for her family, and it felt like it was very important and interesting and could go somewhere, especially at the very end when we find out that the doll eye is not only fake, but I mean, she told us that it was fake before, but the fact that we find out that she can see the dead, like, whoa, girl, where the hell did this ability come from? And why didn't you tell us about this ages ago? Like, that's so random. I don't know. I feel like there was just a lot of plot holes, and I was a little disappointed with that. But anyway, maybe we'll check out the other iterations, the sequels, the prequels, and maybe they will explain everything. That would be great. So yeah, until next time, have a great day or night, wherever it is you are, and have a great one. Bye.
All I do is breathe.